Welcome, my beautiful tree friends, friends of trees. That's how I like to think of us. We are on our first, maybe official lesson for our forest therapy practitioner certification. This is the second time we've gotten together. And I had this information in my brain today of this is something we need to do to start off today. I love Oracle cards. Now, you might not be into Oracle cards, but I have Oracle cards for every occasion. I have Oracle cards for forest therapy because there are times when I've led forest therapy sessions that are much more oriented to people who believe in um, the fact that our plants are beings, our rocks are beings. I think everybody's on board that birds and squirrels and all of those creatures are beings, but sometimes we forget about the other beings. Anyway, I have a deck that said, I think you should pull a card today for this group and our lesson today. So the deck I used is called the Tree Angel Oracle deck. And if it feels like you might want to lead people who are open to the idea that there are oversouls, we call them, of each of the types of plants, and that they could bring a message or power to you, you might look at what kinds of tools you might use as well to start off a session. So the card I pulled, I thought of all of you and shuffled, and honestly, this card popped itself out of the deck. It's not like I had to decide when to choose. It popped itself out. And the card that came out is ash. And the colors on this are just so beautiful. I mean, it is such a vibrant, beautiful yellow. And there is you can see the tree, of course, but I'm sure you can also see what we would call the angel of the tree. And I thought I would read for you. I'll see if I can hold it up and read at the same time. It says, Ash summons us to achieve mastery of things and asks us to make use of our talents and creative abilities to live to our full potential. Education and practice are a natural part of this and is a continuing study and self-development because mastering the art of something also means never becoming complacent. Above all, Ash gives us skill and creativity. Ash's energy field strengthens the will and therefore our ability to get things done with the flexibility and motivation that we will need along the way. Its medicine is practical know-how and astuteness, even craftiness and eloquence. What a perfect tree to come forward for class today, encouraging us about education and development and being creative. So I'm going to pop our Ash right back here. Let's see if we can see her. There we go. So that she can continue to inspire us in class today. Today is maybe not the most exciting of our forest therapy days, or maybe the most exciting. It just depends on how you think of it. We have a variety of topics today. Um, some of them I will tell you in the past, some of the topics, I will say the safety topic kind of freaked some people out. And I don't mean it as something to freak you out, but it is something important for us to talk about because we all want to be safe. But also the research piece might seem a little dry, but in some ways it can be the juiciest piece because it is what can inspire our clients to come to us for a forest therapy session. And it's also a piece of what can act as, maybe we want to even call it the placebo effect. And here's my take on it. If somebody knows that for other people, it has helped reduce inflammation, it's reduced their stress, it's improved their mood out of a depression, it's lowered their blood pressure. and it's worked for other people, then if we believe it can work for us, then perhaps it can work for us, right? I don't care if it's our belief that it's going to work or the fact that we're out in the trees and the sunshine and we're earthing. We want to get the end result. And so being able to educate our clients a little bit, whether through it's our marketing or whenever they first come to our session, a little bit about some of the benefits they can expect to achieve by being in nature. So I'm not going to devote a lot of time in our time here today to talk about this research because on our website page for this week, and I'll just open it up real quick so you can see it. And I'll be sending the link for it as well. So on the website page for this week, there's a lecture video, different than this lecture video. It's one that contains a lot more of this information. It also contains a little guided journey for you to take, imagining being in the forest. The page also tells you what your homework is for this week. Then it has some additional audio lectures that gives even some more detailed information about medicinal benefits, your forest safety toolkit, um, more information about the community that is the forest from, I think, the book that you guys have all been enjoying, this Hidden Life of Trees book. And then being the eco warrior. There's also a book that's referred to in the video that has a lot of additional research studies. It's not one that I had as the required reading, but if you're into research, it's a very well written, easy book, but it's got several of the research studies in the back that make for good information. Then below this, there's just a few links to different research studies that talk about the various benefits that forest therapy has. So all of that is on our website page for this week. So you have links to lots of information that I'll be sending out in the email. But there were some things that I wanted to talk more specifically about today in our little class time together, as well as open it up for some discussion around some things. So let's start. Last week, I did ask people why they were here, like what drew you to take this class, and identifying your specific reason to be here with specific purposes and intentions, or just broadening and being open to what comes. Either way, it's great that we talked about it. But one thing I forgot to talk about last week was if you might want to create what I call an intention altar. And it could be someplace where you're going to sit and study your forest therapy information, or it could be somewhere else in your home. But what this intention altar is, and if you don't like the word altar, then change it out for prayer, intentional prayer, visual prayer. It's to make a representation of why you're doing this, what it is you want to achieve. So that Melanie has shared with us about her research study and her dream of bringing this to kids. And Susan had shared something very similar with Girl Scouts. And, or Angie is talking about having turning her farm into a place where people can come for forest therapy. So all of these things, maybe you come up with a way that you want to represent this, because again, it's kind of like where intention goes, energy flows. And I want you to be super successful with your intentions manifesting from this course. The other thing I want to have you think about, and it will be a part of your homework, and maybe you've already thought about it, is where you're going to take yourself on your first official forest therapy session. And the reason I'm going to have you start thinking about it is part of your homework this week is you're going to do a safety check on it. And that safety check we'll get into in just a little bit, but that's an important piece, as a part of you being safe. And then additionally, it's training for when you're looking for other places to lead people on how to do those safety checks. I feel there was part of me going, oh, I'm not going to talk about the benefits of forest therapy, but I feel like I need to talk about the benefits of forest therapy. I think you all know it. You're here, you're in the class. Um, but these benefits are not just from one thing. They're not just from being out with the trees. They're not just from um, breathing the air that they emit. It's not just from being out in the sun. It's not just from connecting to the earth. It's not just from the colors, but it is all of those things working together. And scientists in Japan and in Europe and here in the United States are looking at the whys. What's the secret ingredient? But here's some of the things that we have found is that when we combine them together, you don't need to be out in nature for hours and hours. A lot of times they're saying 20 minutes that include the key ingredients for a forest therapy session is all that's needed to get some of the measurable benefits. So what are some of those measurable benefits? It's that we can have an immune system that is boosted up, which when our immune system is boosted, that means that we don't get sick as often. Um, and it can prevent other diseases from occurring. So this boost in immune function is huge. And pieces of it can come from various parts. Like you can just do earthing and get a boost. You can just breathe in the phytochemicals from the trees and get a boost. But all of these things work together to give us a tremendous boost in our immune function. They found that it can also lower blood pressure. Now, of course, one could argue going and just sitting for 20 minutes might, no matter where, might make a difference. But they have done studies that they put people through the exact same, you're going to walk this much out in the woods, and then you're going to sit for 10 minutes, and then you're going to walk back, and we're going to take measurements. And now we're going to take you into the city, and you're going to walk exactly the same distance. You're going to sit for the same amount of time, and then you're going to walk back. And they measured. And guess what? They did not have the benefits doing that exact same movement and sitting in the city as they did in nature. So lowering blood pressure can make a huge difference in the quality of people's lives. It also can improve our nervous system health. What there's a measurement called heart rate variability that means that our system is working at a much better. We're not at a high stress level, like constantly all the time. We want our heart rate to go up when it needs to, but then we want it to be able to really relax when it needs to. But when we are under constant types of stress, it tends to not have that variability. By doing more forest bathing, we can bring that heart rate variability back in and create that healthier nervous system. It helps us with boosting our mental health. And probably you will find the most research articles talking about how it changes and shifts and helps people's moods. And even if nothing else, even if there weren't any of these other physical benefits, improving people's mood and overall well-being mentally is a huge aspect for this. One of the groups that I trained a couple years ago, they were actually working with a university in Minnesota, and they had gotten a grant to provide forest therapy sessions for free to first responders and people suffering from PTSD. And they have gone on to offer this free forest therapy. The leaders of it, the people who trained and were leading the groups, were paid, but they offered this to people to help their mood, to help them with the stress that they were having. And they got such positive feedback from the participants in that study. And if you want to find out more about that in our Facebook group, if you see Ellen Kohler's name, or you see Debbie Wirtz, they were the people who put that together and could give you more information on it. And the other thing that it also does with our brain is it can help boost our cognitive function and allow us to become more creative. Like the Ash says, we're going to be more creative when we study forest therapy. So more creativity, better cognitive function. If you are somebody who's thinking, I want to offer this to corporations as a lunch and learn, I want to offer this to executive groups, for people who, I'll say for corporations to know that their employees could get this benefit of a boost in cognitive function and creativity, that could be a great way, I'll call it, to sell the program to them, or for them to see the benefit of how this could not only help their employees, but help the corporation. And there are so many other benefits to being outdoors. When we talk about earthing later on in the course, we'll talk a little bit more about those benefits. But even something like seasonal affective disorder, spending time outside in sunlight and our body creating that vitamin D can make a difference for people who suffer from that. And you can do forest therapy all seasons of the year. And we'll talk about that later on how you can design those programs. So, any questions about any of that? Yep. Okay. Safety. I'm going to make this as painless as possible because there's more of the lecture on the website page. But if I seem like I talk about safety a lot, it's because it's important. People are entrusting us to make it a safe experience. And we want them to trust us with that so that they are not worried about it. Some of the pieces that we want to pay attention to, and I will share with you the pieces that most people, when they're talking to me about their concerns about coming to forest therapy, are things like ticks. Am I going to, if I'm out in the woods, if I'm out in the meadow, am I going to have ticks? And yes, there is a safety checklist in the manual for this. So ticks, big concern. You know, a lot of times, sometimes the other question I get is, oh, what if there's a bear? What if there's a coyote? Like, people are afraid of the big animals. We don't need to be afraid of the big animals. They see us coming and they go away. They don't want to mess with us. It's the little tiny things like ticks that can give us the problem when we're doing a forest therapy session, because ticks, as we know, can carry Lyme disease and cause a myriad of problems for people. So we want to do our best to educate clients before they come. And I'm going to share this with you before you go out on your forest therapy session. Maybe you already have your own way that you prepare yourself for ticks, right? My way is I use, and this is not a sales pitch for doTERRA oils, but I use a doTERRA oil called TerraShield that has a blend of different essential oils in it that it smells nice. I think it smells nice, smells fresh. But ticks don't necessarily like that smell. So I will take a little spray bottle, put mostly water in it, and then about 20 drops of the TerraShield, and I will spray my skin. I will spray mostly, though, my lower part of my body. Ticks aren't normally flying around up high. Ticks live in the grass and they jump onto you. So paying attention to your shoes, your socks, your lower part of your legs to spray a repellent on is where you want to spray it. Now, lemon eucalyptus is an essential oil that, just if you buy any essential oils, that would be one that is also one that ticks don't like. And also mosquitoes don't tend to like it either, which is another benefit. Avon Skin So Soft. Anybody old enough here to remember when everybody bought Avon? But Avon Skin So Soft is also a natural insect repellent. So that would be another way to go as a skin lotion. And let's just say you want to smell like the sexiest thing out there in the woods. Believe it or not, Victoria's Secret, you probably can't read it on there. Victoria's Secret's Bombshell is a scent that repels ticks and mosquitoes. So those are some ideas of ways that you can repel these little buggers, right? Wearing white pants. I know you're like, oh, forest therapy, I'm going to get them all grass stained. Here's the thing, if you wear white, then you can see when somebody hops on you and it's easier to remove them. They also tend to be repelled by the color white. So that could be another reason to think about wearing white. The other thing is that they're also attracted to our body odor. So taking a shower before you go forest bathing is actually a pretty good idea because you're kind of removing some of that body odor they might be attracted to. So those are some hints for what to do about preparing for ticks. But let's say the unfortunate happens and you get one that lands on you and bites you. Well, this is called a tick key. And what you do is I don't know how to demonstrate it, but let's say the little tick was here on the back of my hand. I would put that over the little tick's head, okay? And then you just kind of pull on it, like you kind of turn this key, and it kind of twists the tick right off. Sometimes you'll read that you should put a, a pad with alcohol on top of the tick, or I've seen I put Dawn dish soap on top of the tick, but we don't want to make the tick sick. We want to have it graciously let go of us, because if it gets sick and it throws up into its bite, well, then we're definitely probably going to catch whatever it's been carrying. Not necessarily that it has Lyme's, but we just want to remove it in a way that isn't going to cause a problem. And if you're freaked out about doing it, well, then go to a medical place and have them help you out with that. See, everybody goes, ooh, ticks, now I don't want to go outside. But I will tell you, you take some basic precautions, and quite frankly, you probably won't have an issue. The other safety thing to look for wherever you're going to do your forest therapy is don't go walking through the really high grasses. Don't tend to walk on trails that are super used by the deer, because the ticks like the deer. The ticks also like mice. So while it can be handy to use a trail through the forest, you also want to be aware that that could also be where more of these creatures are. So you're going to look for places that feel safer. And when you are going to go into those places that might harbor a little more of the little creatures, then you want to make sure that you do take those precautions. There are also places that you can actually send, if you wear this, you're outdoors a lot as a forest therapy practitioner, and you have your forest therapy practitioner outfit that you're going to lead people wearing this, you might want to send that away. There's places that will spray the clothing with a repellent that stays for like 70 washes. I don't tend to do that, but well, I do have the spray here at home, and I do spray my shoes so that my shoes are basically repelled. So that's our discussion on ticks. The other thing that tends to be something to think about is people. And I'm fortunate, right? When I lead forest therapy, I do it here on my property. And so I don't really have to worry about strangers walking up. But I have led forest therapy in local parks, and um, you do need to take a look at how you can keep it safe from people. And I don't mean that there's going to be terrible, bad, scary people there that you have to worry about, right? But when you're creating a forest therapy experience, you generally want it to be one where people are just paying attention to nature and they're not being perhaps disturbed by a lot of the other people that are in the park. So if you're going to be doing your forest therapy session, your personal one, the first one that you're going to go on is a guided journey that I'm going to send you an audio for. It's not this week, it's next week, but this week you'll have time to look for your place to experience it. You're going to want to check some things out ahead of time. Like if your plan is, I'm going to do this on a Tuesday night, might want to go there the Tuesday night ahead of time and see what else happens in this park on Tuesday nights. Maybe that's the night that all the skateboarders meet and it gets to be a pretty exciting place. Maybe that's not where you want to have your forest therapy. So you're going to want to check out your place ahead of time and just see what kind of activity goes on at that time of day, that day of the week. If there's a park office, and let's say there's maybe pavilions that people reserve for different parties, you might also want to check with the park office and see if there's any kind of events going on in the park that day to be aware of. And if there's a big family reunion picnic going on in this pavilion, well, maybe you want to pick a place somewhere away from that. So it's just doing your research ahead of time to see what else is going on in the area. But there are times, let's say that especially when you are going by yourself, you're going to do a self-led session. You're going to have to be aware of who else is there. And I'll get to that question in a second, Melanie. Because unfortunately, there are people who would prey on somebody there alone who looks like they're not paying maybe that much attention to what's going on around them because they're zoned into nature. So when you're doing your own practice, you are going to want to keep your cell phone on. In fact, I want you to make sure that wherever you decide to do it, that you can check your cell phone and that you have service just in case you need it. The other thing that you might want to take with you, crazy as it seems, is a whistle, okay? Because a whistle, if you were shouting for help, that only gets heard for so far. Trust me, you're not going to be heard a mile away. But if you take a whistle, people can hear a whistle a mile away. And you can learn the code for SOS, which I think is 3 short, 3 long, 3 short, and blow that. And even if you're thinking, well, nobody else knows that code anymore, I will guarantee you that whoever might be thinking they're going to do something is going to go, "Oh, crap, she sees me. Everybody in the vicinity is heard," and they're going to leave. So we're just going to play it safe. Nothing like that is going to happen. But my mother raised me to be a really good warrior. Not like a warrior, like fighting for something, but somebody who worries a lot. So as a good warrior, we're always prepared, right? So better to be prepared and have that in your toolkit. I did want to share with you girls, whenever I first started doing these forest therapy trainings, I created a little like backpack, okay, and got it created through a company. I think might have been Vistaprint. But anyway, it's a little backpack drawstring, and it has Inner Harmony Forest Therapy Practitioner, but the other side says Forest Therapy Session in Process. And so whether you have a little backpack that says Forest Therapy Session in Process, or you take a little sign and put it up, that can, and you can ask quiet, please, that way people around you won't maybe disturb you as you're having your session. Melanie had asked the question about if you need a permit to do things. So I find it's always best to check with the park and ask what their rules are. I don't, in our area, they don't care, okay? They would only care if I want to use a pavilion, I want to reserve a pavilion for it, but otherwise, they don't care. But I don't know what the rules are where everybody else lives, right? So because you want to always contact a park anyway, and one of the other reasons is you want to find out if there's anything dangerous in the park that you need to be aware of, such as if they know that they have hornet nests in a certain area, you're going to want to stay away from that. If they know that they have an outbreak of some poison ivy plants in an area, you're going to want to know that. If they've had issues with people leaving broken glass and bottles in areas, you're going to want to know that. So talking to the park office means that you can find out all of these things ahead of time as a way to know if this is going to be a great place. You don't want to have people get barefoot in a place where there could be broken glass. So talking to the park office means that you can get they should know. And you're always still going to want to go and eyeball your spot and check it out, but they are going to know. And they're also going to know what their own particular rule is. And you might want to reserve a pavilion. That might be where you tell your group to meet at the beginning. It might where at the end where you have some refreshments for them and talk about what eco practices they might do. So you might be wanting to talk to them anyway about reserving a meeting place or a place that you can also duck into if the weather starts to get inclement. In your book, there is a list of the kinds of things you might want to have in your forest therapy guide, backpack or kit or whatever you want to call it. And it doesn't really contain a lot of first aid. And that's because I'm not advocating for you to go anywhere where you need to have a bunch of bandages or things for first aid. What I do say is, remember, you're going to always check and make sure that you've got bars on your cell phone, that if something happens, if somebody accidentally falls and hurts themselves pretty badly, you're going to call 911. You're going to call for help. It doesn't need to be on you to figure out how to fix things as if you were out in the middle, a 1-day walk from somewhere. That's not what we're doing. We are doing things that are accessible for people and also where you can focus on the forest therapy aspects and know that you're someplace where you can always call for help. Okay. And again, there's more information in the recorded lectures on the webpage. I know that some of you have been diving into The Hidden Life of Trees, and I love this book because it really allows us to start thinking about trees as beings. We are human beings, like we're a being in a human body, and I have my pet dogs and cats, and so they're dog beings and cat beings. And so I also think of tree beings. Trees are conscious. They respond to their environment, they seek out food, they protect themselves from predators. And you might not think of them doing that because they just seem to be standing there oh so quietly. But they communicate in different ways than we do. As reading this book, you realize that they have this whole ability to communicate through their root system and the mycelium, the fungi network underneath the ground. And they don't talk like we do. They communicate with chemical messages. They communicate through the air by releasing chemicals into the air, scent into the air. One of my favorite stories about how trees communicate is a study that was done in Africa with acacia trees. And the giraffes liked to go along and eat the leaves off the acacia trees. And the acacia trees did not enjoy that as much as the giraffes did, right? They were getting their leaves bitten off. They didn't like it. And how do I know that they didn't like it? How do the researchers know they didn't like it? It's because they found that those acacia trees would release a scent into the air that the acacia trees downwind, right, that could get that scent. And because that's pretty immediate, that scent moving through the air is pretty immediate communication. The acacia trees that were downwind, they were like, oh my gosh, Fred over there is being eaten by the giraffe. They changed the chemicals. They put out nasty, bitter tasting chemicals into their leaves so that by the time the giraffes went downwind and started munching on that tree, it was like, ooh, that one's bitter. That doesn't taste good. And it wouldn't get munched. Interesting things. The ones upwind that didn't get that chemical red alert, their leaves didn't turn bitter. They didn't get the message. And giraffes would learn that they could graze upwind because those trees didn't know yet. It's fascinating. We would probably just look out and go, oh, look at the giraffes eating the tree leaves. But the researchers studied how the animals moved, and then they went to that next level of, is there something different going on with the trees? They also discovered that they can send those messages out through their root systems, but that takes much longer. That's why the chemicals in the air is a great way for them to protect themselves. I believe it's also in this book, and if it's not in this book, it's in another book that I've read about trees and what they do. But when they their leaves start to get munched by certain caterpillars, that they will put out a scent that is like the mating call scent for the type of wasp that eats those caterpillars. So they put out a scent that attracts the enemy of what's eating them so that it will come and take those caterpillars off of it. So much more is going on in the forest that we're just thinking, oh, what a pretty tree. But meanwhile, it is busy protecting itself. It's also busy looking out for, how do I get my food, right? Where am I going to grow my branches? How am I going to move so I'm not interfering with other trees? If you go to our Facebook page, I posted a video there that was from overhead that shows how trees during the course of a day, their branches will sway and move, not just from the wind. They will make these little adjustments, but always trying to be kind of careful not to bump into this guy, not to bump into this guy. There are also times when trees are trying to outgrow each other or cut somebody else off when it's not a relative of theirs. And so it can be quite competitive in the forest too. So there's just so much going on that if we open our eyes to it, we can become aware of these amazing beings that live there. part of what we are doing as a forest therapy practitioner is we are going to be opening the eyes of our clients as to what goes on as well. And you don't have to be a naturalist who knows every particular kind of tree or every particular kind of insect. But by reading this Hidden Life of Trees book, you'll be inspired by those stories that you can share with your clients while they're there with a tree or with a group of trees on how they might be communicating with each other. I call it being an ambassador to nature. And a piece of that, of course, is we are taking people into nature. And I like to make the analogy that we're going into nature like we're going to go visit the home of a friend. And when we go visit that home of a friend, we do it with respect, right? We don't, hopefully, we don't do it like a big party crasher that goes in and makes a mess and disrespects, you know, people's belongings or the people there. No, we're going in with respect. And when we do that, this aspect of respect is a way that we can teach people to look at nature a different way, not just as landscaping or, oh, that's cute, or that flower's pretty. I think I'm going to pick it and take it home with me. But by honoring that we are walking into the home of the trees, the home of the squirrels. And why would we steal something from their home? When people want to take a memory, I say take a picture. Everybody you know is going to bring their phone along anyway. I've quit trying to say, don't bring your phone. So now I just say, of course you can bring your phone. Put it on airplane mode. And we don't want anything ringing or alerting while we're on this forest therapy excursion. But certainly when somebody sees something that has a meaning for them or a message for them or is just so beautiful to them, have them take a picture and not take the item back home with them. The other education that we can give to people is talking about how they can have a more ecological practice in their daily life. And it can be anything. It can be anything from recycling to repurposing to um, it's an unlimited way that we can, riding a bicycle rather than using something with fossil fuels. And there's just so many different ways. And it's one of those things I want to open it up to conversation with the group here of what practices do you already do in your life that you could be kind of passionate for, that you could tell people about and inspire them. I mean, maybe you participate in Earth Day cleanup of litter, but you clean up litter all the time. Maybe even at the end of your forest therapy practice, you might encourage people to say, let's leave this place a better place than how we found it, and have bags for everybody to pick up a few items of litter and dispose of it, right? Something that we can show how we can give back, that we appreciate nature, we appreciate our visit there. When we can encourage people to make a difference, I know I'm the eternal optimist, but I believe that we can make a difference in what's going to happen on our planet. If we open people's eyes to the fact that these are not just things to be used, that these are beings to be treated with respect. And of course, that doesn't mean we're going to not use trees anymore. We're not going to ever remove a rock from any place where it is. But by understanding that there is a community in effect here and that they have been here far longer than we have, and to treat it with respect, I think can make a big difference in our world. Before I open it up for discussion about our different practices that we already do in our daily life, I did want to talk about the difference between being green and something being healthy. And what I've found, and maybe you guys already know this, but a lot of people don't know that when they see a product that's labeled green, that they assume that that means it's healthy for people. And that's not necessarily what it means. When something is labeled green, and I don't think there's any government regulation that says how a company can label itself green. But in general, the green label means that that company did something to reduce its carbon emissions, or something in the way they package the product that makes it more recyclable. So it can be a product with chemicals that's not actually healthy for a person, but it can be labeled green. And it does mean that that company has done something for the environment. So for example, Johnson and Johnson company that I think makes a lot of chemical cleaning products that I don't personally use in my home, but some people do, and that's okay. Um, it's not okay, but it's out there. But they will see that now it's labeled green and they go, oh my God, now this is going to be a healthy cleaner for me in my home. Well, no, what it meant was, and I commend them for this, in the plant that made that, they shifted to, there was a big dairy farm near that plant and there was a lot of cow manure. And the cow manure, what they did is they took it, they buried it in the ground, and the gases that came off of that, they used that methane gas that came off of that to generate electricity. And so that plant that made the cleaning product was powered from cow poop methane rather than however the electricity was going to be generated in a way that created a greenhouse gas. And so that's green. That's helping the planet, and that's a good thing. But it's the same chemical product. So you might need to help your clients understand that difference. Green is good, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a healthier product for us. Okay, I want to open it up because I'm excited to hear about what kinds of um, ecological practices you do all the time. I'll share one of mine, and it's a little thing, but I really try to cut back on my use of paper towels. Now, I have pets, and so there can be a great need sometimes for paper towels. But what I have shifted to is using other towels like regular, old bath towels that I'm not using anymore because they got worn out, to mop up messes. And then I have the pet laundry, right? Where I just wash it and I reuse. I'm not throwing away loads and loads of paper towels. In how I view it is, yes, do I buy paper towels, but not as many. I'm not costing as many trees their lives by the use of paper towels. I'll also use a lot of microfiber products so that, again, I'm not using a lot of chemicals in my home, which means not just it's not chemicals in my home, but it means that I didn't have to drive to the store to go buy my cleaning product or have the Amazon truck drop it off. I'm not contributing to more cleaning products having to be sent to the store, which transportation, more greenhouse gases. So in in the way I look at it, it's a small contribution, but it's a little one that might, if everybody did a little bit of a practice, we can cut back on things. We're never going to eliminate everything, but if we can cut back and give nature more space, it can make a difference. What's a practice that somebody else does? I'm going to turn this on to gallery view, so all of our beautiful forest fairies can be here. Um, what's something that somebody else does? Melanie.
I do a few things. Um, I've been getting things from a company called Grove that works really hard to provide products that are reused. So, beeswax is in this paper. that you can put your sandwich or your piece of something in, and then you put it in your refrigerator. And then when you pull it back out, you can eat whatever's in there and wash it off and then reuse it. I've gotten more of these reusable felt towels that are kind of like what you're doing. Instead of using as many paper towels, there are unfortunately occasionally times that I just haven't figured out how to use that, and I wind up using some paper towel, but it's less.
Mhm.
um, they have these, I don't know if they're silicone or rubber, but they're these little covers that you can put on like half of a lemon or half of an avocado, because we wind up often using half of something, and then I would take a piece of cellophane and more cellophane and more cellophane and more so it eliminated the cellophane. I'm working towards, when I build my new house, getting rid of the damn plastic bottles. Our water is not as um, high quality as I would like it to be. And right now, everybody in our neighborhood drinks bottled water, cases and cases of bottled water. And I sit there thinking about all the microplastics coming off the bottles into the water I'm drinking, which is presumably better than the water from the tap. Um, so I'm planning for my new house to have reverse osmosis water, and then I'll have glass containers to put it into, and that the plastic bottle thing is making me crazy. I've also begun to use more cleaning products that are not in plastic bottles as liquids. So sheets of a detergent, and I use very little detergent. I probably use about an eighth of what is recommended because my clothes don't get that dirty except if I'm gardening or doing pottery. My pottery things get pretty nasty, but those I just soak in a bucket, and I don't care if they're that clean. So I think those are the things that came right off the top of my head.
Those are excellent. Those are excellent. Linda, what do you do?
There's a few things that I do. I don't use dryer sheets. I use the balls. Stopped that quite some time ago. I don't use shampoo that comes in a container. I use a shampoo bar in my hair. I grow some of my own vegetables. I try to minimize on cleaning products as much as I can. There's a company that does cleaning cloths that they weave a metallic fabric through it. Interestingly enough, their Canadian office is based in my hometown, which is nice.
Is
But
it Norwex?
yes, it's Norwex. Yeah,
Yeah, I use
yeah,
Norwex. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely love Norwex.
Mhm.
We actually have now this might sound a little bit contradictory, but we also have solar panels on our home that tie into the grid.
Mhm.
So we make a contribution into the grid. I mean, that's a paid service, but I mean, I think that's how people are encouraged to do some things. Um, my husband's a mechanic, so interestingly enough, although automotive and vehicles are not great for the environment, if you maintain them and they're working at their optimal um, uh, they're optimized, they're efficiently run. That's better for the environment because I mean it's difficult to get around that. So I think maybe taking a look at some of the things that we do use on a day-to-day basis, but being conscious about how that rolls out.
I love it. I love what you gals are talking about in terms of um, reducing the amount of garbage that we produce, right? The amount of container use. Um, and one of the things you can inspire people is to think about, can you go a whole week without creating garbage? Like how little disposables can you create in a week? And have people think about, oh gosh, if I'm buying a case of bottled water, like all of those plastic bottles have to go back into the environment in some way. If I'm buying all of my food in the grocery store in containers that have to be thrown away, I'm contributing to that. So even just starting that thought of like, how can I reduce on the containers is a great thing. Anshi, tell me some of the things you do, and then we'll get back to you, Melanie. Oh, wait, can't hear you. There we go.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, okay.
Perfect. Well, I'm fortunate to live on a farm, so often I don't even think about how I create less garbage. I realize that we create a lot less garbage than our neighbors. I have a big garden, so we try to grow a lot of our own food. We have a well, so I don't need bottled water. I encourage everyone who attends my workshops or comes to my office to bring their bottled water or have my water.
Mhm.
And it's the same. I try not to use plastic bottles. I usually buy from a company called Attitude, I believe. They have also bar shampoos and things like this, and I can refill my laundry detergent and so on and so on. What else do? We plant trees. We plant every year
That's
new
wonderful.
trees, and we always have in mind what it does for the wildlife. So, yeah, we don't use, well, not in my garden at least, I don't use any pesticides,
Mhm.
stuff like that. I use the poop from my animals to feed my garden.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I try not to use any plastic bags or something like this. Yeah, I can't think of anything else, but
Well,
well,
those are
we
wonderful
also
things.
we also heat our home with our own wood, which comes from the forest. It's a lot of work, but well, we live on the farm. We couldn't do this in the city,
Mhm.
but it feels good to keep ourselves warm by working for it and
Mhm.
enjoying the wood. Yeah.
I love it. All of you are doing things that if you talked about it just very briefly at the end of a forest therapy session of a way to give back to nature, it can inspire people to go, oh, you know what? Yeah, I've been thinking about trying that bar shampoo, right? And not having to throw away a bottle every month. It's just little changes that we can all make. It would be really hard to live a completely, like, I'll call it eco warrior life where we don't have any consumption. Maybe someday it will be easier for everybody to live a little more like that, but little steps between here and there. So Melanie's question is about dog poop. Go ahead,
Well,
ask your
uh,
question.
okay, wait a minute. I live in a suburban area. I have a house. I'm renting my neighbor's house, but my neighbor's house, all the houses around me are the same. It's all 50-foot wide, 100-foot long lot. And for the most part, my dog goes outside into the backyard. And so I have to pick up poop there because I don't want to step in it. And then if I take him out anywhere, I need to pick that up. And I sometimes am traveling, and I wound up, because sometimes things arrive in bags. I've been always using the bags that they used to arrive in, but New Jersey has now changed their rules and they don't provide plastic bags anymore, which is great. Except now it really is revolting to me to buy even recycled plastic bags to pick up dog poop. And I basically convinced all of my friends, relatives, neighbors to give me their little bags that they would otherwise throw out, so I can use those. But I'm curious as to what suggestions I can have for picking up dog poop, which I do need to pick up because people really don't want it on their shoes. I can't just, and I had been composting. This is sort of related to the second bit. And then my neighbors asked me to stop because they thought that my compost was contributing to a problem that people were having with rats. I think that the rats are getting into people's garbage without lids on it rather than vegetable compost. But I honored the request and stopped. And in the future, I will have new composting bins that are above ground that are sealed that I'll crank so that nobody can accuse my composting of causing rats. But I've been trying to decide whether I should get a disposal or not. I haven't ever owned a house with a disposal, but I lived in one as a child. And I'm trying to decide if there's any utility in it, because anything that is vegetable can go in the compost. If it's dairy or meat, not so much. And so other than being better about portion control and not wasting food, I'm trying to figure out like what to do about that stuff, and if I just put it in the trash and just deal with it being in the trash, but then I need plastic bags for the trash, or if I should get a disposal and put it down the disposal. And I can't figure out what to do. So I'm looking for answers to those two questions.
Those are really good questions, and I don't probably have a great answer for either of them. For dog poop, I have also a very small dog, like your little small dog. So there have been times where it's just here, my backyard, I will pick it up with a Kleenex and take it in, and I will flush it the next time I go to the bathroom, right? So that's probably more information than you all needed to know. But here's the thing, I live out on 88 acres. There's a lot of things to poop in the yard, and I'm not picking up everybody's poop, right? It's only like the immediate poop. When I take her somewhere, yes, I bought poop bags, Melanie, and I use a poop bag, and then I dispose of it at the park where all the other poop bags are, in a little poop bag container. I don't know if anybody else has a better idea on doggy poop. When we had bigger dogs, I had a
The scooper? Is it that scooper?
well, I had a scooper, but I also had a hole in the ground with a lid on it that I would put the poop into, and then I would sprinkle enzymes, kind of like whenever you have like an outhouse or an enzymatic toilet in a tiny house kind of thing. And so their poop all went in the hole, and I would sprinkle the enzymes on it, and that's how I handled their poop. Great poop discussion. And as far as disposal, that's a really good question, because I would assume that disposal goes down through the septic system, right? And would be digested through the bacteria in the septic system. And that might be a great way to go with some of those things you wouldn't put in the compost. Anybody else have an idea on that? Okay, good questions.
I know Linda commented about, and this is a good point, about rats being attracted to bird feeders, and a lot of us have bird feeders. I actually didn't have a bird feeder at the time, but I do now, and I know many, many people do. I haven't figured out what to do about that either, because it's a joy
Mhm.
to look at the birds.
Mhm.
It's less of a joy to see the other critters that want to go after what's put out. I'm not sure what your thoughts are about that.
Well, I guess I probably think very differently about all the critters that can be attracted, the ones that we think are cute, like squirrels, and then the ones that people go, ooh, it's a rat. Hey, they are all beings that we, in some way, took up their space that was once their home. And so while I don't want them inside my house, I don't get so fussed up about them being outside. That's their home before it was my home. I know
agree.
that can be a hard sell. What were you gonna say, Angie?
I agree with this completely. We have a practice on our farm that we have raccoons who eat our corn, yes, and we always say, well, they have been here first, and they get their corner. It's okay. We
Mhm.
leave always a little bit in winter time for the wild animals. And I just wanted to say regarding the poop thing, the only problem I see with composting dog poop is that my uncle was a vegetable farmer, and he always said that dog poop burns whatever vegetable we want to grow later on. So you have to be a little bit careful. But I can't imagine that rats would be attracted by it.
And again, I kind of agree with everybody. I think maybe I have middle ground. We had a bird feeder in our backyard, and one day I was out in the backyard and I watched the rat climb up the bird feeder and climb back down again. And what we did was we removed the bird feeder. So we didn't go after the rat. We removed the source of the animal that we didn't want in our space. So for me, it was, did some of the birds suffer? Perhaps. But again, the thing about a bird feeder, and especially here in Ontario, the thing about a bird feeder is if you have a bird feeder 12 months of the year, you need to make sure that it's filled all the time because they become dependent on that.
Mhm.
So you just need to have some sort of consistency. And I mean, I was raised on a farm in the prairies, so the trade-off, the back and forth was pretty normal. I mean, we, had horses that passed and we buried them in the back, in the pasture, in the forest, in the trees. Just kind of that circle of life. I think you need to be respectful.
Mhm. Permaculture is that concept of looking at our land. When I say ours, we don't own anything, right? But what we're guardians of, right? That space that we are guardians of, and looking at it in a way that, yeah, there's the human zone of it, and then we think of where can we have the place that's kind of wild, and leaving a part of our land, a part of what we are guardians of, being for the wild creatures, and having these different zones. So permaculture might be something else that you want to look into, read about, maybe you're already experts in it, and educating your clients on, in their yard, are they leaving part of it wild? Are they planting some trees and shrubs? Would they consider growing some food in their own yard? Maybe even if it's just lettuce, right? Something that they would use. And I love these ideas of turning our yards into food plots, right?
Mhm.
It's less to mow, which helps in a lot of ways without using the fuel, without contributing to the greenhouse gases, and giving something, whether the people eat it, or here at my house, sometimes it's the groundhogs who get the benefit of my garden the most, but somebody gets to eat it. And it just feels like a better way to live in conjunction with nature. Other things that we can inspire our clients with are things about, rather than buying everything new, thinking about how they can repurpose things. And I've seen so many cool videos of people doing exactly that. They go and they look in the thrift shops and they find an older piece of furniture that they take home and they paint it and they make it beautiful and they make it loved again. And that's beneficial in a couple ways. One, we're using something that is already a resource, right? Those trees already died to make that piece of furniture, right? And so we're just honoring it by its reuse and loving it. And if somebody goes and buys something that's completely new, then that feeds into the industry of, we need to cut down more trees, we need to continue to produce things. I will admit that IKEA has some mighty attractive looking items at attractive looking prices, but I've seen some documentaries on some of the unethical practices that IKEA has had in obtaining their wood, that's really discouraging. They have gone into protected forests in countries in Europe that are not well patrolled, and cutting down their forests and trucking it right out. So the more we can do to encourage people to, you know what, look around your own house. What can you repurpose? Look at the local thrift store. What can be repurposed? And make your home unique with these repurposed items rather than always having to buy new. I've had other people who very much gotten into how can they cut down on how far they drive places. I had one of my forest therapy graduates last year was so passionate about this that she sold her car and she went everywhere by bicycle. And if it was something where she was going to have to buy more groceries or go further, she would call a friend, you know, to come in, but she didn't own a car anymore so that she could cut down on fossil fuel. I would like to say, I am like, wow, you go. I'm not there, right? I can't do everything. None of us can do everything, but everything that we can look at and make a difference in is something powerful. Oh, Linda, you're saying that, oh, locally made clothing. That's cool. Tell us a little bit about that. Oh, wait, we can't hear you.
Sometimes locally by a local artisan,
Mhm.
or sometimes just Canadian designers. I mean, there's a few Canadian designers that I'll purchase clothing from. It's made in Montreal or it's made in Calgary. And again, because it's not mass produced, it's much more expensive to purchase. And again, in turn, what that does is it makes me think really hard before I toss it out. Because if I've got a jacket that I paid $30 for, I'm going to pitch it. But if that investment, my financial investment is $200 in that jacket, not so much.
Mhm.
And you invest in better quality clothing and it lasts longer.
Mhm. That's a
I
brilliant tip.
do. Yes, I love it.
Right? Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And then, Melanie, you'd also, you're turning your garage into a garden. So it is a part of your rebuild. So that is awesome. Whoops, I can't hear you.
I was sort of pushed to do it because when you're on a 5,000 square foot lot and you're knocking down your house that has some structural problems to build a new one, which I spent a lot of time thinking about the ecological aspects of that. But then I realized that I had to keep my coverage down. And so I could have a smaller house with a big garage, or I could have a larger house and no garage. And then when I realized how I was using my garage, it wasn't really for storing my car, it was storing stuff. And the stuff was stuff I could put in my basement if I really had to keep all that stuff. And then I could use the basement to make pottery and do other things that I love to do, and do more art. So I won't have to travel as far to go to the open studio that's 30 minutes away. And I can do more growing of herbs and food and have a more healing garden space and not have to go somewhere else to access that. And so and it's really funny when you tell people you're getting rid of your garage, they're like, oh, that's really bad for the resale value of your house. I'm like, I don't care about the resale value of my house. I care about enjoying my house and having a bigger, better garden. And then I also don't have as much of my land covered in cement. So more of the rainfall can get absorbed into the land.
Mhm.
And then I'm not planning on putting asphalt on the inner part of the driveway, just on the outer part, which also means more water can get into the soil. So I won't have to water as much and can catch more of it and use it for the garden. Um, and then the other thing that I put in the chat is that we have a monthly bulk trash day. And since I was a child, I used to go out with my father and look what was there. And I found all kinds of great stuff. Some of it I don't have to do anything to. Some of it it's a project to redo it. We found a beautiful table that was just all covered in gooky piled up paint, and we removed all the paint and refinished it, and it's a gorgeous oak table. More beautiful than probably anything I could have found. The quality was excellent. I don't even know. I think somebody started to strip it and got tired or just didn't finish, but it's a beautiful piece of furniture. And it not only was less expensive, but I felt really good about saving it.
Mhm. Exactly. You all have cool, inspiring stories to share with people. And again, we don't want to do it with our clients like lecturing them of what they should do, but we want to inspire them. We want to have them after a forest therapy session of making friends with a tree and noticing the beings of the forest, thinking about what is it that I can do that can make a difference to nature, to the forest, to the trees. And all of these things will do it. We had fun today. I think I had fun today. So for your assignments this week, let me go back to our website page. On here, it lists your homework for this week is you can download the practitioner manual section for this week and read through the research aspects, the safety precautions, that aspect of forest as community, and then how you can inspire people to be more ecologically minded. Then you're going to think about, where am I going to do my first self-guided forest bathing session? And you're going to do your safety check on it. You're also going to think about what plants in your area might be toxic or poisonous, and be familiar with those so that you or future clients aren't going to accidentally, sit on the poison ivy or something like that. Then you're going to think about, what are you going to have in your forest therapy toolkit? And there's that checklist that's in your book. We've already talked about ecological practices, and maybe listening to everybody else, you're like inspired, like, oh, I think I could try that one too. And think about how you might inspire your clients with these. Continue reading the Hidden Life of Trees book, and then you might, when you finish that one, you might want to start the Forest Bathing by Amos Clifford, because that's going to get you prepared for next week. There's audio lectures down here, and then again, this is just that additional book. And you might enjoy also going through and looking at these different studies, or even if that doesn't excite you that much, you might look at some of the different topics here. And if you're somebody who's planning to work with kids, really look at the ones that talk about kids. If you're looking at working with stressed out executives, then which ones worked with that population. So thank you all for being here today. And for those who are watching this later, we look forward to you joining us next week. And please hop into the Facebook group. And I am going to be creating it's called Email Dodo. So I'm going to create an email group for this group going through this class at this time, so that we can share within our small group here, things that aha moments or things that we've discovered. So I look forward to seeing you all next week. Take care. Have fun. Go hug a
Everyone.
tree. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.